doing well. It's been a while since I've done a video because I've been doing daily podcasts as opposed to daily videos. Of course, all the videos I do are translated over into podcast format. But yeah, I've just been enjoying the ease and convenience of it. So it just feels a little bit more personal too. But I wanted to hop back on video and chat with you guys about hobbies. So I am a person of many hobbies, and I've often received comments about, like, I don't know how you do it all, because I'm juggling a business that I own and run myself with basically very, very little help. I am a parent, and I do a lot of, as any parent knows, you do a lot of parenting. No, I mean, during the pandemic, it's just been a lot of juggling in and out of childcare and stuff like that. And she's 3, so that also plays into it a little bit. So that in and of itself is like really full. But the thing that I've noticed about myself, and maybe you guys have had this experience too, when you get really busy with the bare essentials, so I would consider running my business and parenting bare essentials. When that encroaches so much on every other aspect of life that there's no time for anything else, I get really miserable because there are other practices that I do that make me feel human, that make me feel like myself, that make me feel like I have something to give. And doing these videos or these podcasts is a good example of that, because it forces me to, I shouldn't say forces because it's a little gentler than that, but it's a good encouragement to continue having ideas and sharing ideas and thinking about ideas in a more concrete way. It's kind of like a little bit of like an online journal or something, you might say. So when I get so focused on business and so focused on parenting in those two things that I don't really do anything else, it's not a good recipe. I've spent periods of time where I've worked crazy hours, and you know what? I think that's okay in small bursts. So every time I do a course launch, for example, it's usually a couple weeks of like all day, every day, like 12 hours, like go, 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 start to finish. And I can deal with that. It's just when it starts to become really long term. So I've often thought, oh, I should be, putting in X amount of hours into my business, which then when I combine with X amount of hours into parenting, that really doesn't leave room for anything, because my thought is I should work more. And that maybe I should. Generally, I don't work more than 20 hours a week, though. Especially with parenting, I find anything past that point gets really tough, especially because the type of work that I do isn't passive. Like, it's very active. So I'm doing live sessions. I'm filming videos for my course. I'm dealing with administrative tasks, which might be the lightest of the tasks that I do, but I'm not it's not something I relish and love. I just feel a lot of the work that I do is very engaged. This is true when you're a piano teacher, because there isn't really a lot of time to just like sit quietly and zone out. It's not like you can just get into a little bit of a trance with what you're doing. It's like you have to be just like, your light has to be turned on, like all the way. So it's a little exhausting and draining, especially if I try to do too much of it. That's something that has always been true. So with the exception of the first few years that I was a piano teacher, I don't think I've ever taught more than, I think at the most I ever taught was something like 30 hours a week. And that was unsustainable. I was young too, so I feel like I had the energy for it, but it was still very draining. It doesn't end up, it was something like 60 students for that amount of time. So it was a really packed schedule. And then that's not including all the planning and things that go into it as well. So I feel like, 20 hours or so of teaching a week is about the sweet spot that I've been doing for the last, I was going to say 20 years. I'm not that old, like 15 years or so. All this to say, I much prefer my life with 20 hours of highly concentrated, highly focused work, not just the kind of like, like casual work, but like I'm giving it my all. It's like full focus and energy when I do it, in a concentrated, shorter time span. And then that gives me a little bit of space to not feel rushed as a parent, to have time to cook meals from scratch, and to do my hobbies. So I wanted to talk about those hobbies today, and the way that I find that they enrich my life, and sometimes the way that they fall apart, in that I can't always maintain them perfectly. And I think it's a mistake to try to maintain habits perfectly all the time, because you have to be flexible to the winds of life, such as when COVID cases rise and you have to take a little bit of a childcare break. So number one, practicing music. This should be obvious. And not just practicing music, but writing it too. So when I sit down to write, it's always random and it's usually at the worst possible time because I try to pay attention to the little inkle. I just get, sometimes I get in this mode. I'm like, I just feel it's the right time to sit down and try to play something. And yeah, usually it's when I want to go to bed or some other really awkward time. But in terms of habits, practicing piano, practicing singing is something that I really like doing. Should be, again, obvious because that's my occupation. And I'm also in a band and I sing in it and I write music and stuff. So I don't sing often enough, but I try to do it at least once a week. Where oftentimes what I'll do is I'll just look up chords to whatever song I'm in the mood to sing, and I'll try to improvise some kind of piano version of it while I sing. More for the singing than the piano playing in that case. So I just do simple chords while I try to practice the vocals. That always gives me a huge boost of energy. And then another thing that energizes me as well is committing to daily piano practice. Now, I've gone through phases with this where I'm practicing like 3-4 times a week, or where I'm practicing close to every day, but in very small bits. So right now I'm practicing piano probably 5 days a week, something like 15 minutes to 30 minutes a day if I can. It's not strict though. So there are going to be weeks that I practice more and weeks that I practice less. To me, it's less important that I'm hardcore committing to a certain amount of time than I'm just doing it because it's something that makes me feel good. So if I start to get really harsh about, like, oh man, I got to do like 30 minutes a day no matter what, I'm not in that mode with piano practice. There's a season for that. If you're in a season of deep learning, like if you're going through a course or if you're taking an exam or something, then you need to be way more disciplined and strict with your time. But I'm not in that mode with pretty much any of my hobbies right now. So as such, I'm trying not to treat them in such a rigid fashion. But again, even if a little bit is better than nothing is kind of the motto that I've been doing lately. So 5 minutes of practice is better than nothing at all. Definitely not perfect at this. Another hobby that I picked up recently, maybe you've heard me talk about, is learning French, because why not? Always wanted to learn another language, and it doesn't add that much time to my day. I don't want to commit to any more than, say, half an hour a day on this. And I don't care if it takes me a really, really long time to get any good at French. I just want to chip away at it little bit by bit. Right now, I'm probably doing 15 or 20 minutes a day. And since I'm using an Anki program, it's basically just like a downloadable flashcard system. I don't even have to plan anything or do anything. I just do the exercises that come up on Anki, and it's super convenient. I'm really appreciating that. Once I've learned all the pronunciation rules, then I'm going to move on to make my own cards. And so that's just something that I feel like it's a little bit of an intellectual development thing, but it's very tangible, and I've never learned a second language. So so that's kind of a fun side project I've picked up. I also really like doing yoga. So recently I've been experimenting with doing 5 minutes of sun salutations first thing in the morning while I'm brewing my morning coffee. And that's been a really, really great habit. Another thing that I'm experimenting with is doing like a mid-morning yoga session. I really like waking up early. So my ideal schedule is something like I wake up and I do some of my deep mental work first thing in the morning. So say for the first like 2-ish hours. And then breakfast and yoga is like a really good break for my mind. I usually wake up pretty clear-headed, and I don't want to like talk or have any conversational aspects to my day. So it's good for me to just get down and focus and just do some hardcore work, like hardcore. Like I'm not taking it easy in the morning. So I find that doing a little bit of movement in the morning to break it up is a really nice dividing line between the like intense work of the morning and then the lighter administrative tasks that I'll do later in the morning. So that's something I've been experimenting with. Really, really I've been doing yoga for probably a decade. At this point, I love it. I've gone through phases where I've done an hour and a half of yoga a day. I used to be super hardcore about it. And I think it's the meditative aspect to it. So I tend to veer towards anxiety and have stress problems. So the thing I like about yoga versus something like high intensity interval training is that it de-stresses me. It doesn't, I get that HIIT is great for some people. I don't really like it for myself just because I don't need to add like more like speed and intensity to my day. I already do that naturally. I need to slow myself down. And I find that combining that with I tend to do more intense yoga, like, so it ends up being somewhat strength training at the same time. So yeah, so that's another hobby that I really like to get into my daily life. But even if I can't get any more than a 5-minute session, I call that a win. Like, even just 5 minutes of yoga, at least I'm stretching a little bit. And here and there, I'll just do intermittent stretches when I have time as well. So aside from that, many of you know that I love to read. So reading is another hobby. I try to make this one, I put a lot of priority on, and I find it very easy to fit into my day. So I try to prioritize about an hour to 2 hours a day of reading. And the content of what I'm reading varies. It's usually nonfiction. Depends. If I get fiction, I usually just burn through it. But usually I'm consistently, day by day, studying some kind of, right now I'm going through a childhood education series. I'm almost done. I got Aldous Huxley's book sitting on my shelf, so I'm getting into that one next. Yeah, so 1 to 2 hours of reading is a lot, I guess, but I do it pretty much first thing in the morning. I know I said, like, I do really intense mental work when I wake up. That's part of it, actually. So if I'm reading a book that was written in 1900 and is very technical, it requires a lot of concentration, and I'm trying to study it. So I'm not just trying to like casually read. It's like I'm doing study reading, and I'm taking notes and doing some active writing as well. So I find that I can do that with the first hour of the day, and usually in the evening I find a little bit of time to read. Throughout the day here and there also, I'll just read through articles in The Economist. I try to keep up with them. So I get a new publication of The Economist once per week, and I try to read them, like all of it, once per week. It's probably like 2 or 3 hours of reading. But I've been doing this for several months, and I'm obsessed with this habit. I love it. It's basically a Reddit replacement. So in those like 5-minute pockets here and there, I like picking it up and reading an article. I don't always get it. A lot of the subjects they tackle are I know nothing about. Like, I couldn't tell you, the names of the world leaders or things like that, but I'm getting better a little bit by bit. I'm starting to retain some of it. So definitely reading and self-education. Another habit I have is journaling. I've been doing journaling since I was a kid, so this is a really easy one for me to maintain, although I just journaled for the first time in a month today, so not always good about keeping that habit. But it's not a habit I forget about. It's not the kind of habit that I'm going to drop the ball on for 2 years. So again, I'm not going to put too much pressure on myself. I'll do it when I do it, and that's good. I'm just kind of looking through, obviously cooking. Cooking isn't just a chore for me. A lot of times when I cook, I'm really interested in exploring new cuisines or recipes that I haven't tried. I have my handy pink binder where I have my running list of recipes that are really good, either that I've made or adapted or have really enjoyed from another cookbook. So maybe one day I'll make a cookbook or something like that, make something of it. But yeah, so that's a little bit. It has a little bit more of an elevated status. It is a hobby as opposed to just a blanket chore I'm doing. So a couple other things. I'm working on learning how to become a better writer in a technical way. So I've always written, but I don't know the rules very much. I don't know how to write a persuasive essay or anything like that. So I'm going through one of my, I think it's called it's just like a style book, basically like a little style guide, and I'm going through some of the exercises one by one. I'm currently working on, and this is taking me a long time because I'm just chipping away at it bit by bit. I don't have that much time for it. I'm writing an essay on pandemics, not specifically COVID, but just like pandemics in general, because I've read a few books on them, and I just find the subject super fascinating. So yeah, I think that's the gist. I'm just looking at my schedule for the week, so I'm just looking through it to see if there's anything else that I've missed. I mean, I have a commonplace book of quotes that I write in quotes sometimes. I don't know if that's a hobby, but it is a habit. And every now and then I like to just listen to music, or like actively listen, like do nothing but listen. Or one thing I haven't done in forever that I want to pick up again is just read poetry. Like even just picking up a poetry book, because I used to love and be obsessed with poetry when I was younger. So even just like 15 minutes, just like finding a blank space in my day. Because the thing that I want to come to is I am busy in the sense I have a lot going on in my life. I have a lot of responsibilities in my life. But there's the essential, it's so essential to have these activities that bring me joy and I think make me better person who has more to give to others. It's night and day. Sometimes I'll just be like, for those of you who are parents, you just sometimes get annoyed, like where little things bug you and you're not fun and you're not like being playful. You're just kind of like being, just kind of like grouchy. I can be in that state and then go do something like yoga or practice piano. And it's like I'm a different person. So I think that hobbies can make life feel rich as opposed to like empty. It doesn't matter to me. Like I would much rather sacrifice extra money if that's the difference. If I could work more and earn more, I wouldn't make that trade if it was at the expense of having time and space for doing things that bring me joy. And it's not that work doesn't bring me joy, but it alone does not bring me joy. It's all the other things. And I haven't even talked about like any social habits or spending time with other people, because of course those things make life beautiful and colorful and worth living as well. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. I'm happy to be able to catch up with you guys, and I hope you're doing well. Take care.